In the year 2000, a man named Reed Hastings flew to Dallas, Texas. He had a proposal. His company, Netflix, was a DVD by mail service. It had 600,000 subscribers. It was losing money. And Hastings had decided that the best path forward was to sell the whole thing to Blockbuster, the most powerful video rental chain in the world, and let them run it. He asked for $50 million. The Blockbuster executives laughed at him. Not metaphorically. According to people who were in the room, they actually laughed. One of them later described the meeting as a complete waste of time. They showed Hastings the door and went back to their day. 20 years later, Netflix was worth $250 billion. Blockbuster was worth nothing. But here's the thing about this story that almost nobody tells. Blockbuster didn't lose because they failed to see Netflix coming. They saw it. They built a competitor that was, by most accounts, winning. They had a real plan. And then they fired the man who built it because he was spending too much money on the future and not enough protecting the past. This is the story of how Blockbuster didn't just lose. It was dismantled from the inside by the people who were supposed to save it. To understand the scale of what Blockbuster had, you have to understand what Friday night meant in America in the 1990s. There were no streaming services. There was no on-demand anything. If you wanted to watch a movie at home on a Friday night, you drove to Blockbuster. That was it. That was the option. At its peak, Blockbuster had 9,000 stores across the United States, 65 million members, annual revenue of $6 billion. There were more Blockbuster locations in America than there were McDonald's restaurants in many states. Wayne Huizenga, who built Blockbuster into a national chain through the late 1980s and 1990s, had understood something important. The video rental business wasn't about movies. It was about real estate. It was about convenience. It was about being the closest, most familiar option when someone wanted a Friday night. He built Blockbuster the way you build a bank, one location at a time, until you were everywhere. But the real engine of Blockbuster's profitability wasn't the rental fees. It was the late fees. Blockbuster charged customers an extra fee for every day a tape or disc was returned late. It sounds unremarkable until you look at the numbers. By the late 1990s, late fees were generating roughly $800 million per year, somewhere between 15% and 20% of Blockbuster's total revenue. That single revenue line would eventually become the company's coffin, because it turned out that customers absolutely hated late fees. They hated them with a special intensity, the kind of hatred you reserve for something that feels both unfair and unavoidable. And when a company came along that didn't charge them, that offered unlimited rentals with no due dates and no late fees, customers didn't slowly migrate. They ran. Reed Hastings said he got the idea for Netflix after being charged $40 in late fees for returning Apollo 13 past its due date. Whether that's exactly how it happened, the insight was real. The late fee model was a permanent source of customer resentment that someone was eventually going to exploit. Netflix launched in 1998 as a paper rental DVD by mail service. By 1999, they had pivoted to a subscription model, a flat monthly fee, unlimited rentals, no due dates, no late fees. You kept the disc as long as you wanted. When you were done, you mailed it back in a prepaid envelope. It was a fundamentally different relationship with the customer. The early years were hard. Netflix had fewer than 1 million subscribers in 2001. Blockbuster had 65 million members and 9,000 stores. On paper, there was no contest. But Netflix kept growing. Slowly, then faster. By 2003, they had 3 million subscribers. By 2004, 4 million. And Blockbuster's executives watched it happen and debated, and studied, and formed committees. And the late fees kept coming in. And the answer to every hard question about investment and cannibalization kept being, not yet. Meanwhile, Netflix had launched their streaming platform in 2007. It started as a small feature, mostly older catalog content, but it pointed at a future where discs were irrelevant entirely. Blockbuster was running out of time. In 2004, a man named John Antioco was the CEO of Blockbuster. He had been watching Netflix for years, and he finally decided to do something real about it. Antioco's plan had two parts. First, eliminate late fees. The move would cost Blockbuster somewhere between $400 and $500 million in lost annual revenue. But Antioco believed the late fee model was poisoning the brand, that customers had been waiting for an excuse to leave, and the late fees were that excuse. Kill them, and you remove the reason to switch. Second, build Blockbuster Online, a DVD by mail subscription service built directly to compete with Netflix. But with one feature Netflix didn't have: in-store exchanges. Blockbuster Online subscribers could return their discs at any store location and pick something else up immediately without waiting for the mail. It was a genuine competitive advantage that Netflix couldn't replicate. Blockbuster Online launched in 2004. By 2005, it had 2 million subscribers. By 2006, it was growing faster than Netflix. Consumer Reports ranked it ahead of Netflix. It was, by any reasonable measure, working. Antioco's plan was expensive. The transition cost real money. And it was working. Then Carl Icahn arrived. Carl Icahn is what's known as an activist investor. He buys large stakes in companies, pressures management to make decisions that will increase short-term stock value, and moves on. He had done it at TWA, he had done it at Motorola, and in 2005, he started buying Blockbuster stock. Icahn looked at Antioco's strategy, the hundreds of millions spent eliminating late fees, the investment in Blockbuster Online, and he saw money being burned. He didn't see the future being built. He saw this quarter's earnings being spent on something that might pay off in 5 years, and 5 years was not the kind of timeline that interested Carl Icahn. He waged a proxy war. He got himself and 2 allies elected to Blockbuster's board of directors. And from inside the boardroom, he pushed relentlessly to reverse Antioco's strategy and restore the late fees. The conflict between Icahn and Antioco became public, bitter, and damaging. Executives started leaving. Resources were pulled from Blockbuster Online. The in-store exchange program, the competitive advantage that Netflix couldn't copy, was quietly scaled back. In 2007, Antioco left. His replacement was Jim Keyes, the former CEO of 7-Eleven. In 2008, Keyes gave an interview in which he said, "I've been frankly confused by this fascination that everybody has with Netflix. Netflix doesn't have a lot going for it." Netflix at the time had 8 million subscribers and was growing by millions per year. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The very same year, Netflix surpassed 20 million subscribers and launched streaming in Canada. The year after that, Netflix was in 43 countries. There is a version of this story where Blockbuster was always going to lose, where the forces of streaming and digital distribution were simply too powerful, the physics of 10,000 brick-and-mortar stores too heavy to escape. That version is wrong. Blockbuster had a plan that was working. Blockbuster Online was competitive. The no-late fee strategy was rebuilding customer trust. The company had 65 million members, 9,000 locations, and a brand that had decades of cultural presence behind it. What killed Blockbuster wasn't Netflix. It was a board of directors and an activist investor who looked at a company trying to survive the future and asked, "But what about this quarter?" Carl Icahn made money on Blockbuster. He sold most of his stake before the collapse. The executives who reversed the strategy, who reinstated the late fees, who dismantled Blockbuster Online, many of them were fine. The 60,000 people who worked for Blockbuster were not. The lesson isn't to blame Netflix. It isn't even to blame technology. The lesson is simpler and harder. When protecting what you have becomes more important than building what comes next, you've already lost. But when the people doing the protecting aren't the ones who pay the price, that's not a business failure. That's something else entirely. There is still one Blockbuster store open in the world. It's in Bend, Oregon. It has a sign in the window that says, "No streaming, no late fees, just memories." Somewhere in Dallas, someone who once laughed Reed Hastings out of a boardroom is watching Netflix.